Davila, LeBlanc, author, and today I'm going to talk about input and output, the fuels of creativity. Now, I remember in my earlier years writing sketch comedy, attending a writer's workshop during my comedy days at the Comedy Nest. I loved writing, and at the time I was just trying to come up with some funny sketches. I was a young kid who had no idea just how much the craft of storytelling was not only an art, but a science as well. At the time, I had been humbled enough by rejection letters that I figured it was time to start learning. But where to start? Well, a comedian from New York, and I really wish I could remember his name, but for the life of me I can't, which is a pity because he really did influence my creative process quite a bit, had come down to the Comedy Nest to teach a writer's workshop. And one of the questions I had for him was, what do I do for inspiration? At the time, I wasn't feeling particularly motivated or inspired to write. He told me that lack of inspiration was never an excuse not to be writing, and that input equaled output. His next question was, what are you reading? What are you watching? What are you doing? I replied to him that at the present I wasn't reading any books, or watching any show. I wasn't even really doing all that much outside of conceiving sketches and working my job in a kitchen. That's your problem, he said. You have a lack of input. In the creative world, input always equals output. You need to be a consumer of information, content, and experiences. You can't write up about a passion of dance if you are secluded in your home. You can't create worlds and stories without reading a book, watching a movie, a show, a play, or hell, even a burlesque show. Why not even go for a walk? If you are working on a crime novel, watch and read crime novels. If you're working on a science fiction or fantasy, isn't there that good series of books by this random author you could be reading right now? Want to paint something unique? Wasn't there that really cool vernissage or freebie night at the art museum? The important thing is not to block out input. Every moment in your existence is a potential moment for inspiration. How many novels are written on a napkin at coffee shops? How many songs conceived off an impromptu jam session? Don't feel bad if you ever find yourself needing some content consumption time. I will use my own process as an example. When I was working on the synopsis of my book, Dark Transmissions, I had come up to a point where I just didn't want to go on and write anymore. It felt like my creative well had been tapped dry. So I got up, made myself a sandwich, and loaded a science fiction film that I had not seen. By the way, watch Europa Report. It's not a bad space film. Seriously, check it out. Halfway through the screening, I found myself inspired by a scene in the film. I quickly stopped it, picked up my notebook, and started jolting down plot threads. The ideas were just flowing through me. Speaking of which, always carry a notebook and pencil on you. They are the most useful creative tools and friends, bar none. They are the easiest way of remembering any sudden bolts of creativity that might strike you. Julia Cameron once wrote in the wonderful creative aid book, The Artist's Way, that creatives need to make inspiration dates for themselves. This boils down to, in essence, taking 2 hours a week of inspiration time. I've often found that when I put this into practice with consistency, I produce content far more easily and effectively. Remember that the creation process is meant to be relatively painless. A block is an ailment that hinders every creative, and one that we all go through. The important thing to do is to not be paralyzed into frustration or inaction when it happens. Do not give in to despair. Rather, take your creative blockage as a cue that it is now time for input, setting aside the computer, paintbrush, guitar, or whatever, and taking the time for just your own meal, doing your dishes, or cleaning your living room. All of these can be triggers to a moment of inspiration. This is all part of the creative formula. If you want to produce something, you just need to take something in. Input always equals output. The world, your world, is a source of inspiration. Everything and everyone can play a role in it. Never block yourself off, fellow storyteller, and don't you ever stop creating. For a chance to win a free copy of my book, Dark Transmissions, all you need to do is subscribe to my YouTube channel, contact me through my website at www.davilathewhite.com, and this Friday I'll be putting a draw in, and if you win, I will send you a code for a free download of my book. If you like what I'm producing and want to see more, please like and subscribe to my channel. Follow me on Twitter and Instagram, and in love, light, and laughter, be well. You gotta get up in the morning, take your heavy